The box was light. Too light. I knew it before I even opened it. The specific gravity of memory is a heavy thing, and the small mahogany box in my hands felt hollowed out like a bird's bone. It was supposed to hold the weight of my father's life. Instead, it held nothing but crushed blue velvet and air. My hands did not tremble. They are past the age of trembling. They are steady, knotted with the cartography of 80 years of work, of holding tools, of holding my wife's hand, of holding my own father's hand as he lay dying. They're steady hands. But the stillness inside me was something else entirely. It was the stillness of a deep, cold lake, where the surface is glass but the depths are turning over, slow and final. The ring was gone. My father's ring. The one they gave the men of the 332nd Fighter Group. Not all of them, but the ones who made it back, the ones who had a command to recommend them. A simple silver thing, not fancy. An eagle with its wings spread wide. The letters T, A for Tuskegee Airmen, carved into the sides. He never wore it much, so it felt too loud on his hand. But he would take it out on Sundays, after church. He'd polish it with a soft cloth while listening to Mahalia Jackson on the phonograph, his eyes 1,000 miles away, up in the clouds over Italy. He gave it to me the day I shipped out for my own war. A different war, a different sky. He pressed it into my palm. "This is your anchor," he'd said, his voice rough like gravel. "It's not for luck. It's for remembering who you are, who we are. Don't you ever forget that you come from men who flew." I did not wear it either. Not in the jungles, not when I came home. It was too sacred for daily grime. It lived in this box on my dresser, a silent testament, a piece of my father's soul entrusted to me. And it was gone. There was only one person who had a key to my house besides me. Only one person who came and went as she pleased, who would sometimes tidy up my things, moving them from where they belonged to places she thought were better. My daughter, Sarah. I picked up the phone. The receiver felt cool and smooth in my hand. I dialed her number from memory. She answered on the third ring, her voice distracted, the sound of children shouting in the background. "Dad? Everything okay?" I kept my own voice level. The lake inside me remained perfectly still. "Sarah, I'm looking for your grandfather's ring." A pause. Not a long one, just long enough for a lie to be considered and discarded. Oh, that her voice was casual. Too casual. The sound of a stone skipping across the surface of my stillness. "Yeah, I meant to tell you about that." I waited. The silence stretched. In the background, one of the kids started crying. "Well, the kids' summer camp tuition was due," she said, her tone shifting, becoming defensive. "And Robert's hours got cut back again. It was just sitting in that box, Dad. You never wear it. It was just collecting dust." Each word was a small, sharp pebble. I could feel them landing, sinking without a ripple. "Collecting dust. Where's the ring, Sarah?" "I sold it," she said, the words quick and brittle. "There's a collector downtown. He gave us a really good price for it. Paid for the camp. And we even had enough to fix the transmission in the van. It was a real blessing, actually a blessing." The stillness inside me broke. Not with a storm, but with a quiet, deep crack, like ice calving from a glacier. A massive piece of my world was shearing off, drifting away into the cold water. I saw my father's hands, the scarred knuckles polishing that silver. I heard his voice. "It's for remembering who you are." And I heard my daughter's voice, telling me she had traded that memory for a summer camp and a rebuilt transmission. I did not shout. I did not curse. I did not say anything at all. "Dad, are you there? Dad." I gently placed the receiver back in its cradle. The click it made was the loudest sound in the world. It was the sound of a door closing. A final door. One I knew, with a certainty that filled my entire being, I would never open again. I stood there in the quiet of my bedroom for a long time. The afternoon sun slanted through the blinds, painting stripes of light on the hardwood floor. I could smell the roses my wife, Eleanor, had planted in the yard decades ago, their scent a faint, sweet ghost. The house was full of ghosts. Her laughter in the kitchen. My father's stern but loving gaze from his armchair. Generations of life, of honor, of sacrifice. And now this hollowing out. It wasn't about the money. I had money. I wasn't a rich man, but I had worked my whole life at the Ford plant. I had my pension, my Social Security, the house was paid for. If she had asked, I would have given her the money. I always did. That was the wound. She didn't ask. She didn't even think to ask. Because in her mind, what was mine was already hers. And what was sacred was just an object, an asset to be liquidated. I walked out of the bedroom and down the hall to my small study. The room smelled of old paper and wood polish. My father's portrait hung on the wall, a young man in uniform, his eyes clear and fearless, a hint of a smile on his lips. He looked like a man who believed he could tame the sky. He had. I looked at his face and felt a profound, aching shame. I had failed him. I had failed to pass on the meaning. The legacy was not the ring itself, but the honor it represented, and I had placed that honor in the hands of someone who could not feel its weight. I sat down in my worn leather chair. The springs groaned in familiar protest. I didn't turn on a lamp. I just sat in the gathering dusk, the stripes of light on the floor fading to gray. The house grew quiet. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall was the only sound, each tick a second of my life falling away. The hurt was a physical thing, a pressure in my chest. But underneath it, something else was forming, something hard and clear. It was not anger. I was too old for the hot burn of anger. This was colder. It was the clarity of a winter morning when the air is so sharp it hurts to breathe, but you can see for miles. I saw my life, a long road of accommodation, of making myself smaller to fit into the spaces my family allotted me. I was Dad. I was Grandpa, the reliable, quiet man in the background, the man who could fix a leaky faucet, who babysat on short notice, who wrote the generous checks for birthdays and Christmas. I was a utility, a resource, not a person, not anymore. My daughter did not see me. She saw a house she would one day inherit. She saw a bank account she had access to. She saw a dusty box with a trinket inside that could be turned into cash. The decision settled in my bones. It arrived not as a raging fire, but as a pilot light clicking on, steady and sure. A small, blue, unwavering flame. I would not be a resource any longer. I would not be an afterthought. I would reclaim my life. I would honor my father. The first thing I did the next morning was brew coffee. The ritual was my anchor. The smell of the dark roast grounds, the gurgle of the machine, the warmth of the ceramic mug in my hands. I drank it black, standing at the kitchen window, watching the sun come up over the rooftops of the neighborhood I had lived in for 50 years. The world looked the same. The neighbor's dog was out. A kid on a bicycle threw a newspaper onto a lawn. But everything was different. I was different. The world had been rearranged overnight. I finished my coffee, washed the mug, and placed it carefully in the drying rack. Then I went to my desk. I pulled out a fresh legal pad and a pen. The pen was heavy, a good one Eleanor had given me for our anniversary one year. At the top of the page, I wrote a single word: action. I was a man who understood process. 35 years on an assembly line teaches you that. You don't build a car all at once. You build it piece by piece in the right order. I would unbuild the life I had and build a new one, piece by piece. First on the list, lawyer. Not the one Sarah and her husband used, the slick young man who called me Pops a new one. I opened the heavy old phone book, its pages thin and soft with age. I let my finger run down the list of names under attorneys. I stopped on one. Eleanor Vance, Esquire. Estates and trusts, it felt right. A woman's name, a strong name. Her office was downtown, in one of the old brick buildings that had survived urban renewal. I called and made an appointment for the next day. The woman who answered the phone had a kind, professional voice. She didn't ask any unnecessary questions. Next on the list, bank. I dressed carefully, not in my usual jeans and work shirt, but in my Sunday suit. Gray wool, freshly pressed. A crisp white shirt and a plain, dark tie. I polished my good leather shoes until I could see my own determined face in them. This was business. This was a declaration. I drove my old Buick down to the branch I'd been using since I got my first paycheck. The car was 20 years old, but ran like a dream. I did all the work on it myself. It was one of the few things left in my life that was entirely my own. The leather of the driver's seat was worn smooth, molded to me. The bank was cool and quiet. The air smelled of clean carpets and money. I didn't go to a teller. I walked straight to the branch manager's office. Mr. Henderson, a young man, younger than my own daughter, with a nervous habit of adjusting his tie. He stood up when I walked in. Mr. Hayes, good to see you. What can I do for you today? I sat down without being invited. I placed my hands on my knees. Steady. I need to make some changes to my accounts, I said. My voice was calm and even. I want to remove Sarah Hayes Thompson from all of them. My checking, my savings. She is no longer to have access, signatory authority, or any connection to my finances whatsoever. I also want to revoke her status as my power of attorney. Effective immediately, Henderson's eyebrows shot up. He fiddled with his tie. Oh, well, that's certainly a significant change, Mr. Hayes. Are you sure? In case of an emergency, I am sure, I said, cutting him off. I did not want to hear about emergencies. I was living in one, a quiet one. I'm of sound mind and body. This is my decision. I want new account numbers, new debit cards, everything. A clean break. He saw the look in my eyes. The look of a man who had made a decision from which there was no turning back. He swallowed, nodded, and turned to his computer. He didn't argue further. We spent the next hour signing papers. The crisp snap of each new document felt like a lock clicking into place. The pen felt good in my hand. Each signature was a hammer blow, forging a new reality. When I walked out of the bank, the sun seemed brighter. The air felt cleaner. I had taken the first step. I had reclaimed my name. My money was mine again. Back home, I began the next task. It was harder. I went through the house, room by room, and gathered up the photographs. The big family portrait over the fireplace. The school pictures of my grandchildren, Ethan and Maya, on the mantel. The snapshots of holidays and birthdays taped to the refrigerator. I took them all down. I was careful. I didn't rip them or break the glass in the frames. I treated them like artifacts from a bygone era, a life that belonged to someone else. I wrapped each frame in old newspaper and placed it in a cardboard box. The last one was a picture of me and Sarah, taken about 10 years ago. We were at a barbecue in her backyard. She had her arm around my shoulder, smiling for the camera. I was smiling too, but my eyes looked tired. I looked like a man who was performing a role. The happy, helpful father. I looked at that smiling woman and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness. Just a vast, empty distance. She was a stranger to me now. A stranger who had sold my father's soul for a new transmission. I wrapped the picture and put it in the box. I sealed the box with packing tape and carried it up to the attic. I placed it in a dark corner, behind a stack of old suitcases. Out of sight, the walls of my house looked bare. The mantelpiece was empty except for a single, framed photograph of Eleanor, and the one of my father in his uniform. The house felt bigger, quieter. It was my house now, only mine. That evening, my phone began to ring. The first call came around 6 o'clock. Sarah. I let go to voicemail. Her message was breezy, annoyed. Dad, I was just at the grocery store and my card was declined. The one for your account. Did you forget to transfer money? Call me back. I deleted it. Not replied. Deleted. An hour later, another call. This time, her voice was tighter. Dad, what is going on? I called the bank, and they said I'm not on the account anymore. They wouldn't tell me anything else. This has to be some kind of mistake. You need to call them and fix this. I have bills to pay. I deleted the message. I turned the ringer on my phone off. The third message came late that night. Her voice had changed again. Now it was laced with a false, saccharine concern. Dad, I'm getting worried about you. Are you okay? This isn't like you. Robert and I are thinking of driving over tomorrow to check on you. Please, just call and let us know you're all right. We're worried about you. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I made a terrible mistake. But we're worried. The concern was for the disruption of their resource, not for my well-being. The clarity I'd felt sharpened to a razor's edge. They didn't know me at all. I deleted the message and turned the phone off completely. I sat in my quiet, empty living room, listening to a John Coltrane record on the turntable. The lonely, searching notes of his saxophone filled the space where the family photos used to be. The music was a balm. It understood the language of a bruised and healing heart. The next day, I met with Eleanor Vance. Her office was just as I'd imagined. Bookshelves from floor to ceiling, filled with thick, leather-bound volumes. The room smelled of old paper and lemon polish. She was a tall, elegant black woman about my daughter's age, with intelligent eyes and a firm, reassuring handshake. She didn't waste time with small talk. "Mr. Hayes," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Your call was direct. Please, tell me how I can help you." I told her everything. I started with my father, the Tuskegee Airman, the ring. I told her what it represented. I told her what my daughter had done. I told her about the bank, the photographs, the phone calls. I spoke without emotion, laying out the facts like tools on a workbench. She listened patiently, her hands steepled under her chin. She did not interrupt. Her gaze was steady and compassionate. When I finished, she was silent for a moment. "Mr. Hayes," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "What your daughter did was a profound betrayal, not just of you, but of your father's legacy. Your response is not an overreaction. It is a necessary act of self-preservation and dignity. To be seen, to be understood so completely was like a drink of cool water in a desert." I felt a knot in my chest I hadn't even realized was there begin to loosen. So she continued, "All business now. Let's talk about your will. You mentioned on the phone you wish to make significant changes. I want to write her out," I said. The words came out clean, without hesitation. "My daughter, Sarah Hayes Thompson, and her children, Ethan and Maya. I want them to receive nothing. Not the house, not the pension, not a single dime. And your grandson, Marcus?" she asked gently. I paused. "Marcus, my other daughter's boy. My daughter, Susan, had passed away years ago from cancer. Marcus was a good kid, quiet, thoughtful. He had his mother's eyes. He was studying engineering at the community college. He always made a point to visit me, not because he wanted something, but just to talk. He'd sit in the garage with me while I worked on the Buick, asking smart questions. He understood the value of things you could hold in your hand and fix yourself. Marcus is different," I said. "I want to provide for him. For his education." "Understood," Eleanor Vance said, making a note on her legal pad. "And the remainder of the estate? It's substantial. The house alone is worth quite a bit in this market." This was the part one had been thinking about all night, as Coltrane's horn wept through the darkness. What do you do with a lifetime's worth of work when the person you saved it for proves unworthy? You don't destroy it. You give it purpose. You make it mean something again. "My father's name was Captain Charles Hayes," I said. "His men called him Deacon because he never cursed, and he always read a psalm before mission. He flew AP-51 Mustang, the Red Tails. He loved to fly more than anything. When he came home, no one would hire a black pilot. He ended up working as a mechanic for the post office. He never complained. But I know a part of him died when he couldn't be in the sky anymore." I took a breath. "I want to create a scholarship, a foundation, in his name, for young people from this neighborhood who want to learn to fly. Mechanics, pilots, engineers. I want to give them the chance my father was denied. I want his name to be lifted up again." Eleanor Vance looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a genuine, brilliant smile spread across her face. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice full of warmth, "that is the most elegant and powerful form of legacy I have ever encountered. It would be my absolute honor to make that happen for you." We spent the next 2 hours mapping it out. The legal structure of a trust, the process of selling my house, the language of the new will. It was methodical, clean, and empowering. I was not destroying a future. I was building one, a better one. As I was leaving her office, she put a hand on my arm. "Your daughter and her husband may contest this," she warned. "They may try to claim you are not competent. Let them try," I said. "I've never been more competent in my life." True to her word, they arrived the next day. I saw their minivan pull up through the front window. I had been expecting them. I met them at the door. Sarah's face was a mess of feigned concern and real anger. Her husband, Robert, a man I had never particularly liked, stood behind her, trying to look imposing. "Dad, thank God," Sarah said, trying to push past me into the house. "We've been so worried. Why haven't you been answering your phone?" I did not move. I blocked the doorway. "My house. My rules. There's no need to worry, Sarah. I'm fine. Robert scoffed. "You cut Sarah off from the accounts without a word. You're not answering your phone." "That's not fine. That's my business," I said, my voice quiet but hard as steel. I looked directly at my daughter. The smile lines around her eyes were tight with stress. Good. Dad, this is crazy, she pleaded. What is this about? Is this about that old ring? I told you, we needed the money. It was an emergency. It was just a thing, an old piece of jewelry. It was just a thing. Those 4 words told me everything I needed to know. They confirmed every decision I had made. There was no understanding in her. No remorse. Only inconvenience. It was your grandfather's honor, I said, the words falling like chips of ice into the space between us. It was the memory of a man who fought for his country when his country wouldn't even let him drink from the same water fountain. You sold that memory for a summer camp. You didn't ask. You didn't think. You just took. Because that's what you do, a flicker of something, shame, maybe, or just shock at being confronted, crossed her face before the anger washed it away. I can't believe this, she sputtered. You're punishing me. Punishing your own grandchildren over a piece of metal. This isn't a punishment, Sarah, I said, and it was the honest truth. A punishment is meant to correct behavior. I have no interest in correcting you. This is a consequence. I am simply arranging my life based on the information you have given me about your character. You have shown me who you are. I believe you. Robert stepped forward. Now look here, he started, his voice rising. No, you look here, I said, my gaze unwavering. This is my house, my life. You're no longer welcome in it. Your access has been revoked. That is all there is to say. I stepped back and closed the door. I did not slam it. I closed it with a quiet, final click. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood. I could hear them on the porch, their voices rising in disbelief and fury. Then, the sound of them stomping down the steps and the roar of their minivan's engine as they peeled away from the curb. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence they left behind. It was a clean, peaceful silence. The battle was over. The rest was just paperwork. A few days later, my grandson Marcus came by. He let himself in with his own key, a key he had asked for, not just assumed. He found me in the garage, cleaning my father's old tools. Hey, Granddad, he said, his young voice hesitant. He looked around the garage at the neat rows of wrenches and screwdrivers. He had always loved this space. Mom's, she's really upset, he said, not looking at me. She's saying all this stuff. That you're not well. That you're being manipulated. I stopped polishing the head of a ball-peen hammer and looked at him. And what do you think, Marcus? He met my gaze. He had his mother's eyes, but my father's soul looked out from them. I think, he said slowly, I think she shouldn't have sold great-granddad's ring. He said it so simply. A plain statement of truth. He understood. I sat down on my workbench stool. The years suddenly felt heavy on my shoulders. I told him everything. About the decision, the lawyer, the will. I told him about the scholarship. When I was finished, he was quiet for a long time. He picked up the hammer I'd been cleaning, felt the weight of it in his hands. He would have liked that, Marcus said softly. Great-granddad. He would have liked that a lot. He looked at me, his eyes shining. I am sorry, Grandad. I'm so sorry for what she did. His apology was genuine. It was for my pain, not for his mother's loss of inheritance. In that moment, I knew I had made the right decision about him, too. He was the one who would carry the legacy forward. Not through an object, but through understanding. Through character. I've set up a trust for you, I told him. For your education. For whatever you need to build a good life. But it comes with a condition. Anything, he said. You have to visit me once a week, I said. And you have to listen to my old records. And you have to learn how to change the oil in this Buick. A slow smile spread across his face. That's not a condition, Granddad. That's a gift. The following months were a whirlwind of quiet, methodical action. Eleanor Vance was a force of nature. She handled everything. We put the house on the market. It sold in a week. I hired movers to pack up 50 years of my life. It was strange to see my things in boxes, but it was also liberating. I was shedding a skin. I kept only what mattered. My books, my records, my father's tools and his photograph, my wife's favorite armchair. The rest I let go. I found a small, modern apartment in a quiet building across town. It had a balcony that overlooked a park. It was clean and bright and had no ghosts. Marcus helped me move in. We spent a weekend setting up my new life. He helped me build shelves for my tools in the spare bedroom, creating a new, smaller workshop. We worked with the local community college to establish the Captain Charles Deacon Hayes Aviation Scholarship. I met with the dean of the program, a sharp young woman who was passionate about giving opportunities to underprivileged students. When I told her my father's story, her eyes filled with tears. The first check I wrote to the college from the proceeds of my house sale was the most satisfying thing I have ever done. It was a large sum, enough to endow the program for years to come. I signed my name, and it felt like I was completing a circle that had been broken for half a century. I was giving my father his wings back. I attended the first scholarship award ceremony. I sat in the back of the auditorium, just another old man in the crowd. They announced the first recipient of the Deacon Hayes Scholarship, a young Latina girl from my old neighborhood, her face alight with a joy so pure it almost hurt to look at. She wanted to be an aerospace engineer. The dean told my father's story, of the red tails, of the prejudice, of his quiet dignity working for the post office. A photograph of him in his uniform was projected on the screen behind her. I saw people in the audience shaking their heads, moved by the injustice, inspired by the legacy. His name was alive again. It was being spoken with honor and respect. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Marcus. He had come to sit with me. He didn't say anything. He just sat there, a silent, supportive presence. My grandson, my ally, my family. My daughter tried to fight the will, of course. Eleanor Vance had warned me she would. Her lawyers filed a motion claiming I was mentally incompetent, that I had been unduly influenced. We had to go to court. I had to sit on a witness stand and answer questions from a lawyer who tried to paint me as a confused, vindictive old man. He asked about my memory. He asked if I was lonely. He asked if I was trying to punish my daughter for a minor mistake. When it was my lawyer's turn, Eleanor Vance simply asked me one question. "Mr. Hayes, why did you do this?" I looked at the judge. I looked at the jury. I even glanced at Sarah, sitting there with her husband, her face hard and angry. "My father was a hero," I said, my voice clear and strong. "He was one of the Tuskegee Airmen. He fought for freedom in skies over Europe, and then came home to a country that treated him like a second-class citizen. He never lost his dignity. The ring he was given wasn't just a piece of silver. It was a symbol of that dignity. It was a testament to his resilience, his courage, his honor." I paused and looked directly at my daughter. My daughter sold that honor for parts for her minivan. She did not do it out of desperation, but out of convenience. She saw a sacred heirloom not as a legacy to be cherished, but as a resource to be consumed. This is not about punishment. It is about stewardship. I have chosen to be a better steward of my father's legacy and of my own. I have chosen to invest in honor, not in entitlement. I have taken the resources my father and I worked our entire lives to build, and I have planted them in soil where they can actually grow something new, something good, something that flies. The judge ruled in my favor. Competent, of sound mind. I have not heard from Sarah since. My life is quiet now. It has a new rhythm. I wake up with the sun. I make my coffee. I sit on my balcony and watch the world come awake. I read. I work on small engine repairs in my workshop for neighbors in my new building. They pay me in baked goods and conversation. Marcus comes every Sunday. We have lunch. We listen to Miles Davis or Ella Fitzgerald. I teach him about the internal combustion engine. He teaches me about the internet. He showed me a website where you can see the flight paths of planes all over the world. Sometimes we just sit and watch the little icons crawl across the screen, and I think about my father up there in the blue. Last week, a letter arrived. A simple, white envelope with my daughter's handwriting on it. I almost threw it away, but I opened it. It was short. She wrote about her children. She wrote that Robert had found a better job. And then, at the end, 2 words I never thought I would see. "I'm sorry." Just that. No excuses. No justifications. I read the letter, and then I put it in a drawer. I did not reply. The apology is a seed. Maybe it will grow into something real. Maybe it won't. It's not my job to tend that garden anymore. I have my own. My life is not smaller now. It is bigger. It is filled with purpose. The emptiness left by my family has been filled with the hopes and dreams of young people I will never meet, all of them reaching for the sky in my father's name. His legacy is not a ring in a dusty box. It is in the roar of a jet engine, in the blueprint of a new wing, in the bright, fearless eyes of a young woman who looks at the sky and sees not a limit, but a beginning. It's a legacy of flight, and my own soul finally feels light enough to join it.